Welcome back to the Twin Spires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James, Scully, and Vance Hanson to look back at Stephen Foster Preview Day at Churchill Downs, the Epsom Derby overseas, and we'll look ahead to Belmont at Saratoga for their Friday card as well. And Vance, let's jump right into Stephen Foster Preview Day. We had a number of stakes races at Churchill Downs on Saturday. What were your takeaways from Stephen Foster Preview Day?
Well, I'll concentrate, first of all, on Ottoman Fleet, who bounced back really well from his shock title defense loss last month in the Fort Marcy Stakes. And he won the Arlington Stakes at Churchill on Saturday at a distance that I don't think was probably his best, a mile and a 16th. It seemed to be a little bit on the sharp or short side for him, but he got a really good ground-saving trip up close to the pace under Flavian Pratt, kind of cut the corner there on the inside and kind of drew away to a very nice victory. Ottoman Fleet is more of a Group 3 type in England, but he's run here in North America 4 times now, and he fits at higher grades over here. Grade 2, I mentioned his Fort Marcy win at Belmont last year. And then after winning the Fort Marcy last year, he ran a really solid third to up to the mark in the Manhattan Stakes over a mile and a quarter at Belmont. So this is a horse with considerably more class when he's running against American type horses than when he's running over in England. So Godolphin and trainer Charlie Appleby are pretty loaded with horses they're keeping in the United States this summer in the older male turf division. But I wouldn't sleep on Ottoman Fleet necessarily being competitive in better spots than the Arlington Stakes on Saturday. I think he would really look competitive in a race like the Arlington Million, stretching back out to a mile and a quarter at Colonial Downs in the summer. So keep an eye on Ottoman Fleet. I think he'll be a better price wherever he shows up next. And I'll briefly touch on a couple of other horses I know you guys might touch on discussing this further, but Scylla, with her win in the Shawnee Stakes, that was her first stakes win against older fillies and mares. Belmont trained daughter of Tappet out of the champion mare Close Hatches, and she's a close relation to the current division champion Idiomatic. She's not quite up to Idiomatic's talent level quite yet, but I think she might get a little closer as the season progresses. And finally, quickly, another takeaway, the Blame Stakes winner Highland Falls really needed most of the mile and an eighth on Saturday to get going, and he looks like a horse that really needs a mile and a quarter going forward. And I would expect races like the Pacific Classic and Jockey Club Gold Cup at the end of the summer would be on his radar. James, what did you think about the weekend?
Well, I'll focus on the 2 big dirt races. And in her 4th start back this season, Scylla added blinkers and earned her first stakes triumph in that Grade 3 Shawnee. I thought it was a very good performance. This was our first, this was our second stakes attempt, her first stakes win, and to me, Scylla has she's a 4-year-old filly with upward mobility in the filly and mare dirt division. We can see Kajera, she's in the red silks there. Scylla's in the Juddmonte silks in second, but Kajera really has everything her own way on a soft pace, 24 and change, 48.33, and Scylla just had no trouble whatsoever, I thought, reeling her in and winning going away. And, she's a regally bred daughter of Tappet. Her dam, Close Hatches, was champion, older dirt female. Her brother, Tacitus, is a multiple Grade 1 winning millionaire. Her younger 3-year-old brother, Batten Down, just broke his maiden by 9 lengths and was briefly under consideration for the Belmont. He'll look to join the stakes ranks later this summer in the 3-year-old division for Belmont. But Scylla, she's just really coming to hand right now. This race was a very good sign. Last year in the spring, last year in the winter, Idiomatic was running on the Tapeta at Turfway. Her first dirt race back last year was the Ruffian. She ran second in it. She didn't start coming along until the summer months. And Scylla's sort of on the same kind of path, you could argue. Now, she's going to have to continue to step forward, but I think her Bristnet speed ratings have risen nicely in the last two starts, 98 and 99 for this Shawnee. And she's got a big upside, I think, for Belmont. In the other dirt race, the Blaine Stakes, the preview for the Stephen Foster. Yeah, Highland Falls. It was nice to see him get his first stakes win. He had run third in the big cap, second in the Oaklawn handicap, so he's making good progress for Brad Cox. I think that the competition will be deeper for him moving forward than Skilla, but it was still a very encouraging win. Really had to pick it up. Cagliostro was coming off a nice win at Keeneland. It was on a clear lead, and I like this late burst by Highland Falls to get the money. So, both horses, Skilla and Highland Falls, will be top contenders if they come back at the end of the month for the main events. Ashley.
So all the runners you talked about were favorites, post-time favorites, and we had a couple other short-priced runners in the stakes as well. But one of the biggest, probably the biggest surprise on Stephen Foster Preview Day was Scully getting upset. He was a 1-4 post-time choice and was upset by an 18-1 long shot in Close the Game Sugar. Now, Scully was racing primarily at Oaklawn Park, had a 7-win streak with a stakes race at Lone Star mixed in there, then went overseas, finished second, came back, won 2 races at Oaklawn, now has a runner-up at Churchill as well. This was a track where he broke his maiden and had a second in allowance optional claimer. But looking at Breeders' Cup and looking at the Vanderbilt where he might be pointed toward, a little concerned that we keep seeing him come up short when he goes away from Oaklawn Park. So I'm not sure if I feel as confident with him, shifting to Saratoga, especially at Del Mar, the Breeders' Cup Sprint. We're going to have the Chosen Brawn, one of the top sprinters in the country. So for me, the takeaway was maybe Scully is best at Oaklawn Park because he did have a pretty slow start to this race, but set very fast fractions and then caught late by a Red Ortiz Jr. So I don't know what to expect when we see him at Saratoga this summer, but kind of disappointed. I was really hoping Scully would get the win. What'd you all expect?
Vance?
Yeah, I know he's been running quite a lot at Oaklawn. I think I read that the owner lives in the Arkansas area, and so he wanted to see Scully compete locally as much as possible. So that's kind of why Scully hasn't been stepping up in grades so much over the last couple of years. And you were right to mention that the slow start of this race, he had to really rush into back to take the lead down the backside, set really quick fractions, and he just kind of got found out in the last 16th of a mile or so. So with a better start, I think he could probably still have a solid chance at the Vanderbilt. But this, like you said, this also kind of raises questions whether he really has the necessary class to take that next step forward and win a race like the Vanderbilt or going forward the Breeders' Cup Sprint.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, the slow start did cost him, but I was looking at that race sort of like you, Ashley, as a springboard to going to New York and, being the big favorite in these Grade 1 sprints at Saratoga. And it didn't go to plan with him. He wasn't as brilliant as he was at Oaklawn, so definitely a disappointing performance. And, that sprint division, that it can be in flux a little bit at this time of year. Obviously, you mentioned the Chosen Brawn, but there's some other potential runners that will be involved in the picture come this fall. And can't count out the 3-year-olds as well. We got a really good field in the Woody Stevens. I think some of these 3-year-old sprinters can make an impact in the fall.
I'll mention real quickly, too, we have a Twin Spires money back offer that we frequently provide for our Twin Spires users. And with Scully finishing second, we gave out around $16,000 to our players that were betting Scully to win. So as our producer said, Blaze, he said Twin Spires is where players win, even if you come in second, if you opt into those Twin Spires money back offers. Well, let's move over to Epsom, where we had the 245th running of the Epsom Derby, won by City of Troy, a Justified colt. His connections mentioned potentially moving him onto the dirt and racing in the Travers or the Breeders' Cup Classic. So, James, where do you rate his chances racing on dirt for the first time over here?
I rate him pretty good. I mean, obviously he's going to have to take the dirt, but being by Justify, he's certainly going to have a chance. We'll see what happens Saturday in the Belmont Stakes, but Mystic Dam was 9-1, or Mystic Dam was 13-1. Sees the Greatest 9-1. We've had the first two races in the Triple Crown. The winners all paid at least $20. I don't think there's any real standouts in this 3-year-old division, dirt division in America. And this City of Troy, obviously, he's a really, really talented colt. He had an excuse in his 2000 Guineas comeback. He banged the gate before the start and, wasn't ready for the beginning, and, perhaps a little bit, that affected him big time and cost him any chance that day. But this was a great rebound performance. I thought he won as much the best, going 1.5 miles in Saturday's English Derby. And, being by Justify, Justify throws lots of dirt horses, and Aidan O'Brien is not afraid to run his best turf horses in lucrative Grade 1 American dirt events. Most famously, he took Galileo, who was the best turf horse in in Europe, best 3-year-old turf horse. He won the English Derby and a whole bunch of other Grade 1s. He would have been a big favorite, or had a huge chance to win the Breeders' Cup Turf, and he ran him in the Classic. Now, Galileo didn't run any well. He had turf on both sides of his pedigree, and he ran 6th in the Classic. But Giants Causeway was like a 10-time group stakes winner on turf, had never run on dirt. He came over for the Breeders' Cup Classic at 2000, ran like a next second to Tiz Now. Even a few years ago with who was it? Declaration of War, another horse that had won the great Group 1 Queen Anne, the Juddmonte International. He came over, switched the dirt for the Breeders' Cup Classic in 2013 and lost a 3-horse photo, got beat a neck in third. So he's had these turf horses. The thing about Giants Causeway and a Declaration of War is that both those colts had some dirt influences in their pedigree. They were both out of Rahi mares. Rahi was sire of Serena Song, and their stallions had thrown dirt stakes winners as well. So if you get some dirt influences in those pedigrees, like City of Troy does on the top side with Justify, definitely those horses will have a chance to take to the dirt. And if City Troy makes a seamless transition to dirt, he's going to have a huge chance to win a race like the Travers. I think the Travers is the race he's looking at first. He can always come back for the Breeders' Cup Classic, but I'd like to see him come and try that Travers, because we haven't had, unlike the Breeders' Cup Classic where we've had all these Euros come over and aim for that race in the past, there's never been a horse anywhere near City of Troy's caliber go for the Travers. It would be sort of a uniqueness to it in my mind, and he would potentially have a serious chance. He'd be a top contender, regardless of how he trains leading up to Advance, in my opinion.
Well, as you kind of alluded to, mentioning Giants Causeway, Galileo, etc., the lads at Coolmore are very anxious to win the Breeders' Cup Classic at some point. And, them bandying this idea of bringing City of Troy over for the Travers is obviously, their way of saying we think this horse is a potential Breeders' Cup Classic candidate. And, testing his dirt prowess in the Travers is probably not a bad idea. Rather than taking him directly to the Breeders' Cup. It would be a fascinating thing to watch. Europe's best 3-year-old against America's best 3-year-olds going 1.25 miles on dirt at Saratoga. Personally, I'm not sure I would entirely sacrifice the opportunity to win some of Europe's significant races in the summer and fall with a horse capable as City of Troy. But then again, two things. Coolmore has won all of those races before, multiple times in Europe. And second of all, they're in the stallion making and breeding business, and I'm not. So that's the big difference between Coolmore and me. They would love to make another stallion that could prove his effectiveness on all surfaces. You mentioned Giants Causeway, James. And of course, Justify didn't run on turf, but he's obviously a superstar stallion all around the world. These horses are winning on dirt and turf everywhere, including the Southern Hemisphere as well. So they obviously want a stallion that can not only show his effectiveness on all surfaces during his racing career, but also appeal to breeders on both sides of the Atlantic. So we'll just have to wait and see whether they pull the trigger and do bring City of Troy over. I think I've seen news reports in the last couple of days that they're either looking at the Irish Derby or the Eclipse Stakes against older horses for his next start. So if he runs again later this month in the Irish Derby or early next month in the Eclipse, we'll see what happens and how he comes out of either one of those races and possibly see him at Saratoga, Ashley.
No, I will add one thing. I don't think they're sacrificing these races on turf. I mean, I think you could run. City of Troy's only made 2 starts this year. Aidan O'Brien runs these horses on 2-3. I mean, he ran in the Arc 2 weeks later, in the English International, and 2 weeks later in the Breeders' Cup Turf. And he's done that with scores of horses. So to me, if he does come over, he's going Travers, a Group 1 turf race, another Group 1 turf race maybe, and then or at least he's going to be running dirt and turf the rest of the year. I don't think he only has a couple starts remaining on City of Troy's calendar.
I would disagree. I don't see him running he would sacrifice running in the Juddmonte International to run in the Travers theoretically. I don't see him turning around from the Travers and running in the Irish Champion, the Arc, and the Breeders' Cup Classic. I just don't see that in the works.
Yeah, but he would run in one of those. I mean, O'Brien wouldn't go August 24th to November or whatever. I mean, he would have another race between them.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying that if you're going to point for the Breeders' Cup Classic, ultimately, you're not going to say run in the Arc as a prep race.
Well, I'll take it over.
But he could because first off, whether it's the Arc or he could even run an English Champion 2 weeks later and ship over for the Breeders' Cup Classic. I mean, he ships horses from the Champion every single year for the Breeders' Cup. So, I mean, City of Troy would be in that mix potentially.
Well, we can have this debate in a couple of minutes and see where we are at that point.
I did want to say the connections of City of Troy also will have Sierra Leone potentially pointed toward the Breeders' Cup Classic or Travers. We'll see what happens there. But as far as City of Troy, he's obviously very talented, versatile. Aidan O'Brien got his 10th Epsom Derby win, said this was his best of his 10 winners. I was looking at the history, though, for the Travers and the Breeders' Cup Classic with runners who have raced on the turf and then tried the dirt over here. But that had me a little bit concerned. If you look at the Breeders' Cup Classic, Ravens Pass was a horse that was successful on the turf, had 11 turf starts, then came over to the U.S. to race in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but won on Santa Anita's all-weather that year. And then with the Travers, we had Catholic Boy, who switched from turf to dirt successfully, as well as VE Day. But I don't see a lot of history in favor of a turf runner coming over to the U.S. and succeeding on the dirt, but certainly City of Troy, very talented, so it could happen, but I'm going to go with history. That's how I like to wait until I see it done before I back a horse.
And that's a fair point about Sierra Leone. Coolmore does own him. Now, he'll run a lot less than City of Troy will the rest of the year. I mean, I'll take all wagers on that. Who has I'll take twice as many starts for City of Troy over Sierra Leone the rest of the year.
Well, we will see Sierra Leone this weekend at Saratoga for Belmont Stakes weekend. And there's a lot of stakes to talk about for Saturday, but we're going to turn it over to Friday's card. So, Vance, which horse are you most looking forward to, or who's your best bet for Friday's Belmont at Saratoga card?
Well, Friday's card includes the New York Stakes. It's a Grade 1, fillies and mares, mile and 3/16 on the turf. And I thought Fev Rover looked a little sneaky in her season debut on Friday. There's going to be quite a bit of rain in the forecast this week, so we're kind of looking at a possibly yielding soft turf course, and especially over that kind of a track, I think she's has to be looked at. And she's run well off extended layoffs in the past 2 seasons, including last year when she was coming off a very long break in July. She won a graded stake at Woodbine over Canadian horse near Moira. Over a yielding course, she won by more than 4 lengths. So it was a spectacular performance. And Fev Rover later went on to win a couple of more races, including the Beverly D at Colonial Downs. She also ran at Saratoga last summer in the Diana and ran a respectable third. She was only beaten a half length. So she can handle the turf at Saratoga. The distance is not a problem, mile and 3/16, same as the Beverly D. And another factor in her favor is that there's a chance that she might find herself on the lead because looking at the race on paper, there's very limited other speed in the race. Javier Castellano could find that she's a bit fresh. She could pop right out of the gate, possibly set the pace, and she could prove a little tough to catch if she gets away with a modest pace over a soft playing turf. So Fevrover looks interesting to me in the New York, odds of 8-1. James, how about you?
I'll tell you, that's a competitive looking race right there, staring at the entries. They got 3 graded turf races on Friday. All of them, 2 of them have big fields. The other one I thought came up very competitive. But the rain may affect the conditions. I'm wanting to get a little bit of a better feel upon that. I'm going to talk about the Acorn. That's the last race on Friday. Now, that track comes up wet. Obviously, that would played in the benefit of Torpedo Anna, given that she just won the Kentucky Oaks by nearly 5 lengths on a sloppy track. But I'm going to take her on in this race, and I'm going to do so with the 5-horse, My Main Squeeze. And the thing with the Torpedo Anna, I might be underselling her off of that, but she's not going to get the same cushy trip. I think she's going to have to improve upon the 97 Brisnet speed rating she earned in that race. And on Friday, she's going to have a target on her back. And I'm looking for the other rivals in this race to try to make it a lot more difficult upon her. My Main Squeeze is a filly who won 3 straight New York bred stake races at a 1-turn distance. 2 of them were at a mile. And then she stretched out in the fantasy and wasn't ready for the break, had her head turned, lost all chance at the start, came back on the sloppy track in the 8 bells on Kentucky Oaks undercard, and really a sharp win this day. She's by Audible, who won the Florida Derby, placed in the 2018 Kentucky Derby. I think Audible will be throwing 2-turn types out of a Speightstown mare, but I do think that she's got the potential to get this distance, and I'm just expecting a really favorable stocky trip just behind the speed for My Main Squeeze. If Torpedo Anna does come under pressure on the front end at various stages in the race, it could set up for a horse from just off of it. I'm going to go with a price in the Acorn Ashley, number 5, My Main Squeeze.
I was going to mention this race as well, and I don't blame you with My Main Squeeze. That's kind of my long shot play that I'm going to put in the betting guide. I'm guessing you're going to have similar horses to me. I know we had similar Oaks horses as well, but I was looking at the rematch of Just FYI and Torpedo Anna. Obviously, we just saw Torpedo Anna go gate to wire on a sloppy track at the Kentucky Oaks at Churchill Downs, but was breaking from post 4, now has the outside post. The track bias is not favorable to outside post here at Saratoga. And then with Just FYI, she was breaking from the outside in the Oaks, but now going to get post 4 here. So I'm looking for a rebound. It's been 2 starts now that we haven't seen Just FYI reach the winner's circle, but she had that huge Brisnet speed figure when she won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She also broke her maiden at Saratoga, and she's put in some really sharp workouts at the track leading up to this start, and she can improve. She's eligible to improve 3rd start off the layoff for Belmont. So I'm looking for her to rebound, but I certainly agree with your reasoning for My Main Squeeze as well, trying to beat Torpedo Anna here. And I will say, Vance, your race that you picked, definitely going to be a difficult race, but I was interested in Joseph O'Brien's runner in there. I think it was American Sonya at 10-1 at a price, so I might be playing that horse as well.
I know with just FYI, based on how she's training and just the speed she showed last year, Ashley, being drawn in post 4, I expect her to be forward. I think she'll be closer in the early stages. Torpedo Anna is going to have to really be hustling to make the lead, seemingly to me. She might wind up stalking 2nd or 3rd because I think other horses are going to look to show early speed from her inside.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Twin Spires has a money back offer very frequently at different tracks. And this weekend on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have a $10 money back offer for Belmont Stakes Week. You can get up to $10 back if your horse finishes 2nd or 3rd in all eligible races at Belmont at Saratoga, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Check out the terms and conditions to see more details about that offer, and be sure to opt in as well ahead of those races. And that's all the time we have today for the Racing Roundtable. We'll be back next Tuesday to recap Belmont Stakes Weekend and check out our best bets and fades on the Twin Spires jury as well.